Jon Erlichman of Ticker Take, one of the most watched YouTube channels in partnership as well. I think you got too many partnerships to count. Welcome to the show, Jon.
Hey, Lou, it's great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, where is home for me? Where are you coming in from now?
The Great White North, and I say white because in Canada right now it is chilly. I'm in Toronto and love to make my way to New York. I was in New York last week, but yeah, it's working through the deep freeze as everybody on the East Coast has been, Lou.
Yeah, I'm ready. I mean, it's going to be a mess tomorrow. It's going to get over freezing. So all this nonsense that didn't get cleared away is going to be flooding the streets. So speaking of flooding or blood in the streets, software companies, man, getting crushed on the belief that AI is going to completely eradicate or make them obsolete, even though Anthropic is using an agent over top of existing software programs to do what their plugins are doing. So what's your take on what's being called the SaaS Apocalypse and these software companies getting sold off?
Well, and kudos to you. I mean, you've been doing some great analysis on this. I was surprised by how significant a sell-off we saw. And, I think the one thing we've learned in these last couple of years of tech jitters through any advancement in AI is you never know what kind of advancement we're going to get and how the market's going to respond to that. And I only say that, Lou, because I spoke to a lot of market pros coming into the year who were building a case for the next leg of the AI boom coming from in part the software companies.
Yeah.
In other words, like that, that next layer being, okay, who's going to be able to integrate it more so into their business, more so into their products, and software seemed like an obvious candidate. And so I had a lot of guests actually over the last 2 to 3 months that were highlighting some of the very companies that have been caught in this downdraft as possible opportunities. So, I think it caught a lot of people by surprise, but maybe it shouldn't have. I mean, AI is potentially going to eat the world, and perhaps that means eating some of the software business. But it does feel to me like after the sell-off, I don't know how you feel about it, but it does feel to me like there is now sort of a reset and like everybody looking at the different players in SaaS or software and trying to assess how much business will actually be lost. I think we sometimes overestimate these things in the short term, but like businesses, they are embracing AI, they are adopting AI, but they do like a little bit of hand holding. And a lot of the enterprise software companies provide that. Like until all of those companies come out and say, we had a big list of clients and we've lost all of them, I think some of that has gotten priced into the stocks at this point. But it'll be interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah, no. So I'll respond quickly with one data point that shocked me the most, that the forward multiple on this group of companies went from about 35 down to 20 in the recent downdraft, which is not a haircut. I mean, that is like, priced for obsolescence. But then the other thing, and I would get your point on this too, because you started to touch on it, is assuming that if AI is going to really threaten these businesses, it's as if people are responding as if these businesses aren't going to respond. Like they're just going to be like, okay, AI is eating software, forget it. These are software companies. They've been developing and building and creating. Don't you think that they're going to lean into that innovation? And some of them, they're going to be real winners. They're going to leverage AI and, rise back to the top of the heap again. I mean, do you have any names or talking to any experts where they're saying, hey, ServiceNow is a company that's going to make it, or Salesforce, or are there any names that stand out that could not only just survive, but thrive this AI apocalypse?
I mean, I think those are two great examples. They've come up in analyst commentary over the last few days. I think you could add in on peripherals like CrowdStrike. The idea that, well, there's software involved in a cybersecurity business, but cybersecurity exists because there are cybersecurity threats. And with AI, there are more cybersecurity threats. I think with ServiceNow, absolutely. I go back to that analogy of like the hand holding of being that steady go-between between the business and the AI tools. The truth is, like, when it gets to the nitty gritty of implementation of AI, I'm guilty of only seeing it through my own lens. And my own lens is like which AI chatbots I use and what AI tools I'm trying to implement into my day to day. I really have very little understanding on the bureaucracy of business and what, takes us from A to Z in terms of implementing AI. So I think we might have to read a little bit deeper into that before we reach any firm conclusions. And Salesforce as well, there's well-known Wall Street names like Dan Ives, who brought it up, in the last week or so as a name. I don't know what they've been, Lou, rough like 15 or 20% down this year or
Yeah,
what
yeah,
have you. But this is the same company that has been aggressively implementing AI into their business. So, I think that people were looking for a target after a big run up in tech,
yeah.
and they are trying to assess in real time what any developments mean. And a lot of the AI developments that we get in real time, if somebody says something is game changing, it's hard to do the math on that while the stock market is open. And it seems like people were selling now and asking questions later.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
now
right
with
on.
with charts like this one, you can ask some questions about valuations, I suppose, on the flip side.
Yeah, eventually these businesses get too cheap to ignore. So just out of curiosity, what's your favorite AI agent? What are you using the most? Leadership changes every week, so I'm just curious what you found to be the most productive, enhancing one for you.
That's a good question. It's funny. Like I like to, oh, at least like on the front. We're spending some time here on X. I do like to explore the world of Grok, and I think that it's come a long way in a short amount of time. I think that uh, what will be so fun to watch over the next couple of years is whether or not the battle between all these AI players uh, results in kind of this, because you're hearing this a lot now. Like is OpenAI headed for a Netscape moment? Like
Yeah.
it's I don't know that I've reached that conclusion. I think there's enough business to go around for all of these companies to have a great amount of success. But I would say that, listen, I have been impressed by everything that Alphabet has rolled out, and I think there is a great justification to looking at the success of their business and their stock market success over the last year as a reflection of them turning up the heat on the AI side. But like, look, there's lots of exciting tools out there right now.
Yeah, no, Alphabet's a great example because you talk about, we were banging the table on it back in April of last year on the overblown antitrust rules and everyone thinking that all of a sudden they're going to left that to AI. But now that I think about it and you bring it up, it's almost analogous to these software names, right? Like everyone said that Google was getting left behind in AI. Fast forward 9 months later, 10 months later, and the stock's up, more than doubled since that time. So I think there's probably a lot of opportunities in the software space. But I don't want to belabor that. I want to move on to something that you've done a ton of work on that I'm curious on, and that's the SpaceX IPO. We put it on
Mm.
our list of predictions for this year that it was going to be a flaming pile of capital losses for anyone that bought it at the IPO price or shortly thereafter, because that's how most IPOs perform. And it was coming to market at, rumored to come to market at, called a trillion and a half market valuation. What do
Yeah.
you think? What have you found? I'm always open to change my mind. What are the fundamentals that point to you that this could be a big winner in 2026?
I just think look, I mean, well, first of all, like on IPO performance, roll the dice sometimes, like, I mean, you want to pull out the performance of IPOs, especially in big IPO windows, which I know are great for the investment banks.
Right.
There, there's some historical data, guys like Jay Ritter, who have been doing IPO analysis for years, that say
Yeah, he's the
some
pro, man, from
he
University of Florida, my alma mater. He's a great guy.
exactly. Yeah. It can look a little wonky, but I look at it through the lens of this is a pretty exciting moment. I drink the Kool-Aid on it, and people have gotten so invested in space through all the companies that aren't SpaceX that this is just one of those really interesting moments. The truth of the matter was, as much as I thought I really understood the SpaceX business, I didn't until I started looking closer at it. And I think it's going to be great that people are going to have that conversation, hopefully over the next few weeks or months or whatever it may be, to learn more about SpaceX. But you have a company that so quickly has seen the satellite business, the Starlink business, become the revenue juggernaut for them. That I think if they can have the success with taking larger infrastructure into orbit, larger satellites into orbit. Lou, I don't know about you, but like, I think we have to have a more meaningful conversation about what that means for the telecom industry overall.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, there is the possibility that, sure, I mean, Elon Musk says now the focus short term is going to be on, colonizing the moon rather than
I did see
Mars,
that. Yeah.
all that kind of stuff that's in the headlines every day. But just the idea that in a short amount of time, like we're now what, 10 years ish into them being able to successfully reuse rockets. And while that was sort of the opener, what's been that was basically the way they were able to give people access to the space market. And then with a snap of the fingers, to have that many satellites and that much internet business, and then possibly a huge chunk of the telecom market. That's what I think we have to watch. Now, I think that I don't know what the percentage is, Lou, of like how much of the IPO story is, believing in the space economy long term. But there are so many companies right now that have sizable valuations just on the idea of where the space economy is going. That none of that would exist if SpaceX didn't
Yeah,
exist.
that's
So
it's a
it's
fair
really
point.
worth
I mean,
watching.
it's the SpaceX halo effect, right? They've been the
Yeah.
pioneer. They're dragging them along. So fair point on the bullish case is that they're actually a pure play and the originator of the space economy, where these everyone else is trying to ride their tailwinds. What do you make of this recent news, though? Elon saying, "Hey, let's not worry about Mars right now. Let's focus on colonizing the moon because we think we can do that in the next decade instead of 20 years in Mars, and it gives us a lot more." Repetitions, right? A lot more launches. You can get to the moon quicker. You can learn faster. Do you think that is a smart move? And then second to that, do you think he's got other plans, to your point, of getting more internet up there, right? Like this just becomes the cover for him to launch even more businesses along the way.
Yeah. Well, when I saw that headline from Musk, I did wonder if there's some narrative required to at least warm up some of the investor base. I think there's
Yeah.
enough excitement around the world around SpaceX going public that that's probably not the case. But I do think like once everybody is I can't say leafing. You're probably going to be like, spending hours going through whatever IPO prospectus is issued. You're really trying to get a good gauge for the business. We still don't have a full understanding of where the business is going outside of previously we knew that with the development of Starship and Musk sometimes talking about, I mean, the numbers he's cited in terms of how many they could have in production on an annual basis is mind blowing.
Yeah.
If they can get a portion of those working on Moon rather than Mars, maybe that sort of plays into that. But to answer your question again, I just wondered if um, that Moon comment was in part influenced by the fact that people are going to have a lot of questions in the short term about what the business of SpaceX is going to look like in 5 or 10 years. And when you start to sort of test all that out in investor language, maybe that's an influence. It's Elon Musk, and he's pretty confident in saying whatever he needs to say. So I'm sure it's not a concern with bankers, what have you. But I think it's going to be, as I say, Lou, I'm very excited for the broader conversation around this business, this sector. And, you're going to see a lot of people who were early employees who hopefully have an opportunity to take whatever capital that they had had in SpaceX and sprinkle it into the space economy. And I just think, it's hard to ignore the AI story every day because it's so exciting.
Yeah.
This is an equally exciting story that could be transformational for the economy over the next 25, 30 years.
That's a great point because think of all the millionaires, multimillionaires Nvidia has created. SpaceX could do the same. And we got a comment here to the moon. Yeah, to the moon and beyond with the SpaceX IPO. I think we've got another question from one of our audience members here. Want to get to it from you here. Imagine Let's see here. It's a little fuzzy on my screen, so I don't know if you can see it here. You may have to ask yourself the question from our loyal fan, Chad Towers here.
Okay. In the form of value, insight you share on Oracle, Amazon, and a couple of other ones there. Well, I'll tell you, I'll weigh in on Amazon for a second. Because Amazon as a stock story is really interesting. There's been a lot of commentary recently from some investors, I think, griping about somewhat lackluster returns in the short term for Amazon compared to other technology companies over, call it, the last 5 years. I was just having a conversation today with somebody about the love affair investors have had with Walmart. Sort of almost unusual in the sense that um, uh, people have bought into their digital strategy, and they've done an amazing job. But there was a time when Walmart was sort of during the dot-com era. It was sort of becoming, it was trying to refashion itself as a dot-com play, and things got a little stretched in terms of the
now their
Walmart.
valuation's at like 40 times earnings when you can buy Nvidia for 26 times. So you think Amazon might be falling into that same camp here, where people are worried about their business, but unjustifiably so? Because I look at the last results, AWS had the fastest growing quarter it's had in 5 years, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's my general view is that the big technology companies, and I think that I think the audience member was sort of just asking about. I like to take the numbers from all of these companies and I like to just sprinkle them out, and they remind me that nothing has really changed over long term. These companies are extremely dominant and they have a lot of levers they can pull. And I think that um, whether you like the analysts or not, I know everybody's got a different opinion on sort of the Wall Street game around these stocks. There are very few companies that are as loved as Amazon, and there's just a lot that the company can do over the long term, which is one of the reasons we get a lot of people who recommend it on Ticker Take, and some of the other companies that were on that list too. Tech's going to be an interesting place from here, and I think that's just because we've seen in the last few weeks that there's been a reset.
Very much so.
And at the end of the day, given the move and a lot of the valuations, it's pretty normal to take a bit of a pause, even if that seems unusual or scary to some investors. And I think on the other side, we'll just get back to testing, as you just said. You look at the numbers, you look what the company is trading at, and people make assessments beyond that.
Yeah, you mentioned Ticker Take. Before we let people know how to find you and follow your comments and insights regularly, I got one last hot question for you. What if the IPO window starts to narrow? Is it possible that SpaceX merges with Tesla? Merger of equals to get public. What do you think of that idea? Get rid of the whole process of going public and just reverse merge into an Elon Musk super company.
That would be fun, Lou, because we'd have hours and hours of content to talk about. And I think that at the end of the day, Elon Musk has spent the last couple of years telling us that Tesla is an AI and robotics business. That is where all the energy is going. They are not viewing themselves as a seller of electric vehicles, even though they are selling electric vehicles. I think it'll be an exciting storyline. I don't know that we're going to get there at this point, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm putting it on my bingo card just in case. We'll see. Hey, John, I appreciate your insights. I think I could talk to you for hours about all these names here. How can people find you and track regularly the content and the insights and the wisdom that you're sharing? Where's the best place to find it?
Thanks a lot. Well, listen, you can find me on most social media with my name, Jon Erlichman, or on YouTube, Ticker Take with Jon Erlichman. And that's where we do a lot of interviews with market pros and other content like our SpaceX IPO piece recently. But on Instagram or TikTok or X, you can find me just Jon Erlichman.
Awesome. Well, look, John, I appreciate you making time in the cold weather. I hope it warms up there before too long.
Thanks, Lou. Great to be with you. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Have a great rest of the week.